Hello and welcome to another episode of Not Without My Sister, starring me, Rosemary McCabe, and co-starring my sister, Beatrice McCabe. Beatrice, how are you today?
Great, thank you, Rosemary. How are you?
I'm wonderful, although I have to say I was most dismayed when I woke up this morning and realised it was fucking snowing again.
Well, Rosemary, you'll be even more dismayed when I tell you that tomorrow the snowstorm that is currently sprinkling over Texas is on its way up here for another blizzard.
Sprinkling over Texas? I wouldn't have thought it really snowed in Texas, does it?
And it doesn't very often, so you can only imagine what a massive blizzard it's going to be by the time it gets up here.
A massive splizzard. Today we're going to be talking about Irish people's favourite topic of conversation.
Yeah.
The weather.
I actually think it's funny because even though it is supposed to be our favourite topic, I'm probably the least prepared person weather-wise ever. I never check the weather. It wasn't until I moved here that I would say, oh my God, look out the window. I'd be like, oh my God, it's snowing. I'm constantly surprised. Maybe I enjoy that. I'm constantly surprised by the vagaries of the weather, whereas everybody else will go, I know it's snowing, and they'll whip their snow boots and their snow trousers and everything out. And I'm always I remember when I moved to New York and myself and Julie, the very first winter we lived there, we had no idea it was going to be snowing all the time. And the very first day it lashed snow. We went to leave the office at about 8 o'clock and we went outside and we were wearing high-heeled stilettos. That's what we had. And we had to walk home the 10 blocks in our high heel. What were we supposed to do?
I don't know.
And I remember we were just gripping onto each other and everybody was pointing and laughing because they all had their umbrellas and their hunter wellies and their raincoats, as you do, because Americans check the weather.
I think I would have taken the shoes off, wrapped my feet in plastic bags and run home.
I don't think it even occurred to us, right? It didn't even occur to us. And it also just didn't even occur to us that the weather was good. I think we were we're in a city. We're going to be able to get home. You know what I mean? And instead we weren't. We were up to our ankles in dirty slush.
You got home eventually. You didn't lose any toes or anything.
Oh yeah, but the shoes were for the bin, I'll tell you.
Oh God, that hadn't even occurred to me.
Yeah.
Do you think it's because do you think because I'm kind of the same, Brandon will be very aware of, oh, it's going to be this temperature tomorrow, it's going to do this next week, and I'm like, what? Do you have an alert? I think he just checks it all the time. Do you think it's because we're Irish and I feel like the weather forecast, especially when we were growing up, was never accurate. You know what I mean? You'd be like, oh my God, there's going to be a heat wave tomorrow, and you'd wake up and it'd be lashing rain. Or a heat wave 22 degrees, you'd be like, oh my God, it's going to be roasting, and then you'd wake up and it'd be lashing rain. Or that you could wake up, it would be warm in the morning, it'd be lashing rain in the afternoon, then it'd be freezing by the evening because it's so changeable.
Or is it just that it really didn't change? It was it changes a lot, but it's also just moderate, just in the middle. Do you know what I mean? It rains, then it's not raining, then it's relatively it's not freezing, but it's not warm either. So you damp. Just dress the same all year round.
Yeah, pretty much. I remember when I used to read magazines, it'd be we're coming into bare legs weather, and I'd be like, lol, we are not. You know what I mean? It's May and I'm still wearing my black tights. It's June, I'm still wearing my black tights. I'm in Ireland.
Well, I do think that's amazing here as well. And I mean, maybe, you know what? That's the other thing. I don't want to make sweeping statements because I realised through the things that I'm discovering in my early 40s and late 30s, late 39s, I suppose it doesn't even make sense. In my late 30s and early 40s.
Late 39s.
Maybe I just don't know, what people do, what their habits are. You know what I mean? That I just assumed that everybody's habits were my habits. Because now hear people say to me, oh, I must get my winter wardrobe out. And I go, your winter wardrobe? Yeah. And they literally pack up their summer clothes and put them in storage things, either under their bed or down in their cedar closet, and then bring out their spring clothes. And I'm like, my clothes are my clothes all year round. I put a cardigan on or take a cardigan off. I don't have different clothes.
You also have a very Johnny 40 coat style. So you always have a couple of layers you could take off or put on. In a good way.
Not with you. A Johnny 40 coat style. I cannot. You're so delighted with yourself right now. You absolutely.
But you'd always have a couple of layers you could take off or put on.
I was making a serious point. I do not have a couple of layers. Look at me right now. I have a sweater on and that's it.
You're not wearing a bra?
I'm wearing a bra and a jumper and a slip.
So you do have several layers on.
I have the regular layers I need for my skirt to sit comfortably.
Okay, Granny.
Anyway, I just went outside in these aforementioned clothes and my puffer coat because my friend came over, and because of this stupid pandemic, we had to go outside to have our cup of tea outside, and I nearly died of the cold. But let me tell you, it was lovely and brisk for a few minutes when the sun was shining, and then until all the kids saw their opportunity and started putting on their clothes and coming out to us, which was a disaster. Because I mean, they think they love it. It's like, it looks beautiful, right? And then they come out and they're like, oh, snow my boots, snow my sleeve. Can you pull up my thing?
Our two the other day, right? Brandon was going out to walk the dog and they were like, Dad, can we come with you? And he was like, no, stay here. And I, like, innocently was like, oh, sure, they can go with you. I'd forgotten that it takes them 20 minutes to put their coats and their shoes on, right? So Brandon's down there going like, thanks, Rosemary. And they're like, Dad, where's my other like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle glove? I can't go out without it. So he's like, walk. And I'm just sitting on the couch going, oh, I should never have said anything. I was being very unhelpful. And then they went out. Literally 2 minutes later, William comes back in roaring, crying because he fell and his hand is cold.
Oh, yeah, I know. My hand is cold. It's burning. It's burning.
I know, it's so
Don
cold.
told me. Don is from Florida, and he was telling me that when he moved to Baltimore when he was 22 or 21, he had never seen snow before, right? And he said they had this terrible, terrible, terrible blizzard. And he slept, his bedroom was on the ground floor, like kind of slightly recessed from street level.
Oh, yeah.
He said, and they had like 8 feet of snow, right? It was like a mega, mega blizzard. And he had no idea like what it actually felt like to be in the snow. He just looked out and he was like, it's so beautiful. So he opened his bedroom window and threw himself out in his boxers and his t-shirt.
Oh, dear.
Oh, Aegis.
I'd say he regretted that. Do you think? But you know what? Back to your point about summer and winter wardrobes. I think probably from totally anecdotally, like talking to my friends and stuff, I don't think Irish people are as likely to do that because, like we said, there's not as much of a difference in the climate between summer and winter. You know what I mean? You don't have your like downfill jacket that you need in December, just the same way that you don't have your like super light summer dresses that you'll be wearing from May until August. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
the same way
maybe.
you have here.
I think it's also a little bit more of like, I need my autumnal coloured clothes now to come out of the wardrobe.
They do.
And I
like
don't
that,
really
yeah.
subscribe to that. But also you're right. They don't have the same extreme. Like we don't have the same extremes in Ireland that other places have. What about, which would you prefer now if you had to choose?
I was just about to ask
living
you this,
here,
do you prefer the weather here or in Ireland?
Well, no, excuse me, don't preempt my question. That wasn't my question. My question was, now that you're living here and it has been actually a very, very mild winter, even though snow has been on the ground 3 feet deep for the last 2.5 weeks and probably will be until May, which is always when the last flurry happens, even though I know you're like, it won't be. Usually it starts in November and it starts to get warm in June, but like really warm, but really cold up until May. And then having lived in Milan, you lived in Milan briefly for 3 months, and but you also visited a lot. So, it was cold in the winter, but not as much snow as here.
Yeah.
But it was very cold and then very, very hot in the summer. And then Ireland. And Dallas, you visited us in Dallas as well, where it was absolutely roasting for most of the year. And like, I thought it would be great, but you just couldn't go outside. It was so hot. You always wanted to be, everything that happened in air conditioned environments. Now you can go outside, like we had a pool and stuff and you could go out to the pool, but you had to sit in the shade the whole time. And even then it was too hot. So if you could only pick one place to be for the rest of your life, like not specific location city wise, but one climate to live in, what would it be?
Probably Milan, because like, I like that there are seasons and that it's cold in the winter, but it's not like absolutely freezing cold. It might snow a little bit. Yeah. And then it has really, really nice summers. Now, the summers in Milan, like it was very hot. And I remember like I wouldn't like to live in Milan and work in a bar like I worked in. Do you remember I worked in that bar? And I remember when I went for the initial kind of interview or the pre-talk, the guy was like, you had set me up. You had set me up with this job before I arrived, right? Which was great.
God,
thank you so
I'm
much.
Such a good sister.
You're the best. You're great. And
Johnny Forticoats wins again.
When I went in to chat to him about like, here's what you'll be doing and here are the hours, blah, blah, blah. I was told basically you're not allowed to wear anything sleeveless because he really didn't like the idea of your bare armpits being in customers' faces. So then for the entire summer, my sweat-patched armpits with like a t-shirt with a sweat patch going down practically to my waistline would be in the customer's face. It was the weirdest thing that I was like, I honestly think it would be better.
You maybe are a little bit more prone to glowing than some people.
I do like
you
to
and Busy
perspire.
Phillips.
I
You
do
and busy
perspire a
folks.
lot. I think I actually, I don't think I sweated as much then as I do now.
No, I don't think you did either. I never noticed it being as problematic as I do now.
Thanks, that's really good to know. But you know what? Some antidepressants, including the one that I'm on, can apparently cause excessive sweating. So that's
Sure,
kind
what
of why
about when
I'm
you
so
were down on
sweaty
the
now.
Peloton, though? It was actually hilarious when you were
Oh
down
my
on the
God.
Peloton cycling.
Dripping
You-
sweat.
Dripping sweat, and off you went anyway. You left the room. Don comes down, stands beside the bike, and he goes, "Oh my God, what is this puddle on the floor?" He's like, "Beatrice, we have a leak in the ceiling." And he kept spent ages looking for something that was leaking through the roof. Oh my God. Okay, so, but in Milan, in fairness, like if you lived in Milan, actually it's probably the best climate, because if you lived in Milan, like in a normal world, you'd have air conditioning as well, because there was
Yeah.
no air conditioning. We literally had that fan. Do you remember?
Yes. Oh my God, that fan.
Do you remember
That
we had
fan
one
that we-
fan in the bedroom?
Yeah, and we used to put it on full volume, both as an air conditioner and also in theory that it would blow any mosquitoes away from us. But it seemed to only blow them away from you and onto me. So it was
didn't.
very ineffective.
I was constantly up in the middle of the night with that vacuum cleaner.
Oh, the mosquitoes. Do you remember at one point I had 12 mosquito bites on my left bum cheek? I'll never forget it. So it was absolutely destroyed.
Do I remember? I can't tell you how many times you showed it to me. It was like a word. It's like you were so proud of this like living art.
I was both proud and incredulous. It's like, how? Like, and do you think it was 12 different mosquitoes, or can one mosquito bite you over and over and over again?
I know that Brandon says that only one mosquito can bite you at a time, and yet
No,
I don't
he's
think
wrong.
that's I think that's a bee. That's a bee,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
That can only sting you once. But I'm pretty sure a mosquito can suck your blood until it has gorged itself and fallen into a coma.
He
off your
also
butt cheek.
he also is convinced basically that if he neither sees nor hears a mosquito, it does not exist. So like I would wake up in the summer and be like, oh my God, something bit me overnight, and you go, there were no mosquitoes in the bedroom. I'm
It's
like,
Westworld.
well, was it you? Like,
Looks like nothing to me.
Where did this itchy lump come from? Like, mosquito bite. That sounded weird.
But anyway, yeah, in fairness to me, like maybe the reason I was not getting as bitten as you were was because I got up in the middle of the night with the vacuum cleaner and vacuumed all the mosquitoes
Not
out of
only
every
the
crevice in
vacuum
the room.
cleaner, you absolute bitch. You got up in the middle of the night and covered yourself in DEET. I remember it. I remember waking up one night and catching you in the hall, spraying yourself with anti-mosquito spray and leaving me. I'd say you were like covering me in jam. Going like, take her. You were like,
Gross.
you were like praying to the Goblin King to take me away. And it worked.
I didn't need to cover you in jam, in fairness. The amount of olive oil you were
the
gorging
sweet,
on
sweet
probably
blood.
was probably like steaming out of your pores. Oh, I mean, I could say the same about the red wine I was probably consuming at the time.
Oh,
So,
I'd say that'd be more of a repellent.
maybe
kinda
that was
bitter,
actually
no?
the secret. Maybe that was the secret.
Do not take our advice on this.
There it is. You weren't drinking enough. That was your problem.
Do you ever miss, like, I suppose like what I'm asking is, do you ever think about Ireland and go, God, I really miss the weather? Not really.
I mean, yes, when I look at it, this amount of snow, yes, I think I miss the weather. But like, I also miss the fact that here they're so unbelievably well prepared for snow, like, or they are so used to it that they just get on with life, which I
Yeah.
admire and then B, resent, because I've been here now for 5 years and have yet to have a day where they go, hey, the weather's too bad. Don't come into the office. Like in the
Yeah, I
first
get you.
year that I lived here, the first year that I lived here, it was one of those, like I looked out the office window and went, oh shit, it's like snowing really badly. Went to drive home from the office, pulled out of the office, like there's like a mini road leading onto the highway, got on the highway, realized this was not remotely navigable. I realized as I slid across 2 lanes. I was driving really slowly, but as I slid across slowly, very slowly, across 2 lanes and into the lane of oncoming traffic, that this was not a weather I could drive in. Pulled off onto the side of the road, just about by the skin of my teeth. And I had to sit there and wait to be rescued by poor Dawn, who came with all the kids in the other car to rescue me.
Well, you could hardly leave
Yes.
them behind.
Well, no, I know, but like the danger, you wouldn't want your kids out.
Oh, good
You know what I
point.
mean?
Yeah.
Like it was more that we didn't know anybody else. So like me and my tiny Mazda, I had a tiny Mazda at the time. My Mazda
your
3DX.
chic
I
little
loved
Mazda.
it.
The good thing now is you could call Brandon in his truck. That's the advantage.
I could, yeah.
of
Good for me,
having-
not so good for Brandon.
having lured in this local man.
Tricked
Yeah.
is the word we use.
You weren't in Ireland, right, the year that we had the really, like, the big snow with a capital B and a capital S. When, like, basically it snowed in one day in Ireland what it might snow in an hour here, kind of thing, and everybody freaked out, and all the buses stopped. And because I don't think I think it came out then that there are no snow plows in Ireland, like we just don't have them. And then also all of the outdoor shops sold out of crampons and everything. I remember there was a rush on like those kind of studded things for your feet. I remember I was in work in the Irish Times that day, and Mum was in work. She worked in the civil service, and I remember her calling me at about lunchtime and being like, we're going to have to go home, because if we don't go home now, we won't get home. So we got the Lewis out to Saggart, and Dad came and picked us up. And it was kind of like, you know, the snow was getting heavier and heavier, but it was kind of okay. We made it out to Saggart fine. Dad made it to pick us up. By the time we got back on the N7, the traffic was completely backed up, and it took us 5 hours to get from City West.
Oh, I remember that. I remember you guys on the phone to me telling me still in the car.
From City West, or maybe it was from Ballymount, but it took us 5 hours on the Nace Road. And I remember at one point, like, we found a dairy milk in the glove compartment. We were so happy. You'd swear we'd been like lost in the wilderness for months. We're like, oh my God, thank God we'll share this.
Absolute gobbers. I love that you weren't even like, great, we'll keep this in case we need it, in case we're stuck in the car. It's like, oh, here's a treat.
Eat this immediately. And then at one point, I don't know why, I was sitting in the front.
I bet your mom started singing. Oh my
songs. God, of course she was singing songs. But then at one point you just heard this, I was sitting in the front, just heard this little voice in the back going, lads, I need to go to the bathroom. And we were like, sorry about you. Like, but it was so terrifying because we were watching these trucks in front of us, like, just like waving from side to side like pendulums. Do you know what I mean? Because they couldn't stay on the road. So like the traffic wasn't backed up in the sense that it wasn't full lanes. It was just you were all trying to stay really far away from whatever was in front and whatever was behind. It was just nuts. And I remember we got home, Mum was like, oh, Philip, you're our hero. I couldn't have done that now.
She couldn't have. He is a hero. Of course she couldn't. He is a hero.
Listen.
He got her home to the bathroom. He's a hero. And he built the bathroom. And he built that bathroom. He built that bathroom, then he got her home to it. He's a hero.
Bathroom.
Bum. I was going to say, my memories of weather in Ireland are less around, you'll be surprised to know, snow, and more around rain. And many, many times I remember taking our lives in our hands and wading in the car through the bottom of the road, where there's that dip in the bottom of the road and the floods. And I remember, didn't Abigail, our cousin, like drive off into the ditch in one of those floods and have her car pulled out of the ditch by Dad or something?
Oh, I don't know if that was during a flood, but I do think either Dad or Henry, the farmer next door, had to go and rescue Abigail at one point.
Didn't Henry have to go and rescue you at some point?
No, Henry almost. So there was one day last year, I think Mum and Dad were away. It was when I was living at home. They were away. Where were they? They were out or something. And I was living at home. Oh no, they were down in Leggan Castle. I had bought them like a weekend away.
Aren't you the best? Aren't you the nicest? Brownie points.
As an excuse for a free gaff. And while we were away,
not so nice.
I had stopped at McDonald's on the Long Mile Road and got myself a drive-through
Are you
McDonald's
having a laugh? This is what you do with the free gaff. I had lured them away for a free gaff, and I was having a McDonald's. I can't get over this.
And I was going to have a McDonald's and play Candy Crush for hours. So I picked up my McDonald's, and it was lashing rain, and I drove home. And as I got onto our road, I was like, there was a weird puddle in a place that I've never seen a puddle before. You know, you'd kind of know where the floods are, that you'd be like, that's where there's going to be like a big flood.
Yes.
And I was like, this is weird. And anyway, the car in front of me drove through it, and I was like, oh, that looks very deep. And I remember calling Dad and going like, how should I, like, what's the best way to navigate? And he was basically like, don't put your foot on the clutch and just, accelerate slowly but consistently through it. And I remember sitting there and being like, oh no. And then he was like, listen, you could always call Henry. You could always leave the car there and just call Henry to come and get you in the Jeep. And I was so ashamed about the McDonald's. I was like, no, because I can't let on to Henry that I've just got this McDonald's for one. And then I was also like, even if I ate it right now while I was sitting in the car, he'd smell it. He'd smell the McDonald's. So I just like,
stupid.
I know, ridiculous.
What?
So I just like took a big deep breath and was like, I'll just drive. And I drove through.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I took a big deep breath and ate the entire McDonald's really quickly.
No. I drove through it, and then I went home and I put the McDonald's back in the oven. 100 degrees for 15 minutes, and it was delicious. Let me tell you, after all the adrenaline, it was just what I needed.
Oh, sure. What about the time you do actually suffer from major adrenaline? What about the time you got pulled over by the police person here? policeman.
Oh my God, yeah, for speeding. That was
Yeah.
disastrous.
Yes, I was actually
No,
shocked
no, no.
by the picture.
Sorry. You're thinking about two different things. There was a time that I got pulled over by the police for speeding outside a school zone when it was just like, it was one of the first times I'd come over when I had decided to move over, but I hadn't got my visa, so I wasn't here permanently. And I was driving your car. I'd stayed in Brandon's that night and I was driving back to be home in time to bring you to work, and I was running a little bit late. So I was kind of like, going like, I thought I was going like at the limit, but I was basically trying to go at the limit so I could get there as soon as possible. Didn't notice the school lights, got pulled over. And because I had an Irish driver's license, he couldn't put it in his little system, and he was basically like, just don't do it again. But you're thinking about the time that your car wouldn't start outside the school. And literally within 60 seconds of me going, oh my God, the car battery is flat, both of my arms had suddenly erupted in like sweaty beads of sweat.
Oh yeah, it was actually totally bizarre. Remember you said to me I was in a panic, and I was like, panic, schmanic, and then you pulled out the photographic evidence.
Yeah.
I've never seen the likes of it. So that's more what I was going to say, that I can actually, I feel dismissive of this. Like, I was driving through a puddle, I was afraid of my McDonald's. But the way you get into a panic, I'd say you were actually like in a massive panic at this point.
I do get into a flap very easily, to be fair. But I got into, oh my God, at that time the battery wouldn't start. Now, like, it didn't help that it was really hot that day. And I think in hindsight, I'm not sure if I've ever told you this, but in hindsight, what I think happened was I had turned the car off and left the air conditioning on, which I realise now is not smart, as I was waiting for the boys. So I was like there. I was there in my icy cold refrigerator listening to a podcast, like delighted with myself. And then when I went to start the car, I was like, what's happened? And it was probably like 35 degrees outside. Oh my God, there was another time, actually, sorry, this isn't to do with weather at all, but my car wouldn't start in Dublin. And I remember I had to call the like AA people, and your man came out in this big truck and was like, don't know what's wrong with your car, blah, blah. And he was like, let's try jump starting the battery and see if that helps. And he was like, you didn't have the lights on or anything, did you? And I was like, no. And then looked down and realised I did.
That's
and
bad.
I was so embarrassed.
Well, what can you do?
Disgrace.
These things happen, right? These things happen. Okay, go back to the weather then. What else has ever happened to you? What's the what weather do you absolutely hate?
I mean, I like to think that I love hot weather, right? But when I went to Cuba for a holiday, I realised that I only really like hot weather if I can just sit still in it. Like sit by a pool or sit by the sea and occasionally get in for a dip and cool myself down. I remember when we were in Cuba, my ex-boyfriend turned around to me and went, I never realised that you sweated this much. And I literally like, oh my God, we would walk out the door of the apartment we were staying in, and literally within 2 seconds like that, my arms would have popped out with sweat, my legs like soaking. I was covered in sweat. I could basically only wear like white tops for the entire time I was there because
thong bikini.
not quite. But like, oh my God, like anything we did. I remember we went and we did one of those vintage car tours. We actually have hilarious photos because the tour guide kept making us take like really cheesy photos, like go and stand over there next to that and like put your arms around her and like kneel down, like basically as if we were having some kind of like Cuban marriage ceremony. But I remember we did this car thing in like the, you know, like one of the convertibles. And even in that, when like the wind should have been flowing through my hair, oh my God, I was roasting, thought I was going to die.
Oh my God, I rented a convertible once when I was down in Florida. Who was I with? Oh, an ex-boyfriend, and I rented this amazing fancy convertible, and I was delighted with myself. And we drove from, I think it was from Orlando to St. Petersburg, so it's about 3.5 hours, I think, of a drive off to the coast. With the top down all the way, was living the dream. Got there
hair
from
ruined.
No, I mean hair was grand. It was from just above my sunglasses to the top of my head was lobster pink. Like, I mean, I'm talking like 3rd degree burns. It was terrible. But it also reminds me of the time we went to Mexico with Don. And to your point, it was so hot. I don't know that we had been quite prepared for how hot it was. Like it was boiling, you know, like 36, 38 degrees every single day. And we were lying out on the beach. We were having a grand time. We were under this big sun umbrellas, and we were just sleeping and relaxing and drinking cocktails and all this kind of stuff. And we fell asleep anyway. Grand. We wake up. Don's like, oh God, my ankles feel a bit hot. Looking at the photographic evidence later on, it was clear that from his ankle downwards, he had had his feet in the sun for the whole day. The soles of his feet were burnt to a crisp, and his ankles. And I've got brilliant pictures of us on a jet ski. And he honestly looks like he has bright red socks on. I must find them.
Horrendous. Poor him. It was so agonising.
Oh, so ridiculous looking. He actually had to stay in the hotel room for a full day just applying aloe to his
Do you remember
burns.
poor Chance got really badly sunburnt in Michigan
Shh.
the year before last? Not really badly, but like got a bit of a
He
sunburn.
did. It was really bad.
Terrible.
And he kept crying at night and saying, what was he saying? Who was he blaming?
The pillow is hurting me. Basically, anything that was
yeah.
touching his back, he'd be like, "Why is that thing hurting me?" Like he didn't understand that.
Poor
it was
Chance.
him.
It was my fault because I had the sun cream on every part, but I missed under the back of his floaties.
Tell me, what weather do you love or hate?
I think I just don't love the snow. It's not actually. I mean, I like the snow. It's fine. I don't like. I like the snow if you can go for walks and stuff, but because here you have to drive everywhere, you can't really go out for a walk, right? You can't go for a trek in the snow, which would be nice. And also, like, it's actually up beyond my boots, so it would get into my trouser leg. So I like a medium sprinkle of snow. I do like all four. I'd like to have all 4 seasons. I mean, I am just afraid of driving here because I'm not good at it, and I don't think anybody's actually good at it. And last year, I also had a second.
People think they're good at it as well.
Lots of people think they're very good at it. And like last year, and the expectation is you are just going to be, you have to be in work. You know, you have to be there at 8:30 in the morning. Like I'd kind of be also okay to go in around 11 a.m. when it starts to at least thaw a little bit, you know.
But also when people have been on the roads and like the roads aren't as icy, you know what I mean? When everything's
and that's actually true. I was going to say nearly all the roads are really well salted and really well cleared. Like once you get out of your driveway, it's fine. Except sometimes, like the first day that it snows, my road is not a main road and it's not the best.
When
and
they're
last
not prepared,
year, but last year I was like, well, I gotta make this happen. And everybody's very nice and they'll pick you up and stuff. But I feel like in Egypt, you know, and now you can't really go in cars with people as well. So
of course.
So last year I was like, I got in the car and I was like, okay, I can do this. I've got this. And I got out to the main road and I drove up, you know, slowly, and like everybody's driving slowly, and it's kind of terrifying because as you're, you know, braking, you know, you have less control over, like as you slow down, if you get too slow, you start skidding. So you have to keep like a general amount of momentum. And I go straight up a hill, and I went up the hill, and obviously didn't go fast enough. And there's other traffic coming. It's not a very wide road, and I just went pretty slowly, kind of embarrassingly, off into the ditch, and just tilted in there and had to be rescued. And I was only about like 100 yards from the house as well, so that was really really bad. I had to call the tow service to come and tow me home. I'd love to have been able to be like, it's 20 miles away. Instead I was like, it's just that first house there,
just around the corner. I've never had to be rescued from the snow, but probably because whenever it's been bad, like especially here, like I haven't driven in the snow at all this year, and at home in Ireland, if it was really bad snow like that, you would just go either work from home or, you know what I mean? Like when I was living with mom and dad anyway. I remember there was one year, actually, another year there was a bad snow and mom was working in town and she came to stay with me when I was living in Stoneybatter.
That's so cute.
It was so cute. I remember I was living in this little 1-bed cottage, so the two of us just had to like sleep till it drive me mad. It's like snoring. Or else like I would go out after work and like she'd immediately wake up and sit straight up exorcist style. Where were you? Where were you? or like, hi love, did you have a nice time? Who was there? What did you do? And you know, you'd be like slightly pissed and also exhausted and going like, I'll tell you tomorrow. Like, I'm just going to sleep now. But I remember coming home one day and she was sitting on the couch with my 2 kittens at the time, one on her lap and one on her shoulder, and she was just like, I can't get them off me. She's a dote, but I definitely didn't feel cool. I was like, I'm living with my mom now.
Oh, I'd feel cool living with my mom.
And sleeping in the same bed. But actually it was handy because she was there to bear witness to, once the snow started to melt, the entire kitchen ceiling started leaking. And I remember calling my landlord.
Oh!
Yeah.
That happened to us. Do you remember last year?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when we moved in, we hadn't had the roof redone. We moved in, we'd been renovating the house for a year, moved in, and after the first snow, we had a flat roof. That was the problem. After the first snow, the first day it started to melt, we had like 10 massive areas of leakage all around the house. Had to get it all repaired. It was a nightmare. That happens as it melts, right? Because then the big slabs of ice start to melt and they don't, like, you wish they would just slide off.
They don't disperse off. This is a flat roof extension. But I remember when I told the landlord, he was like, oh, I'll send someone over, and then he was basically like, we found no evidence of a leak. I was like, what? It was literally raining through the ceiling, but I hadn't taken a photo or video because like it hadn't really occurred to me. But luckily mom was there to go, no, I saw it too. Anyway, I ended up moving out, and then he tried to keep my deposit because I had hung pictures in the living room.
What?
And then actually, I'll tell you this, not related to weather, but could be a helpful tip for other people. So he told me he wasn't giving me my deposit back because he was going to have to replaster the walls, like absolute dramatics from him. I then looked him up on the landlord's register. I think it was on... There's some registry anyway that you can look up your landlord. And I basically emailed him and I was like, oh, you know, hi, Derek, or whatever his name was. That wasn't his name. But I was like, hi, Derek. I was actually just looking to put in a formal, you know, application for adjudication through XYZ, but I see that your name isn't on the registered list of landlords. Would you like to pursue this with them? Maybe they've forgotten to list you on there. And he basically got back to me and was like, I'll give you back your deposit and then I never want to hear from you again. Because he obviously wasn't registered. He wasn't.
Yeah, I got that.
He wasn't paying taxes or whatever.
I never want to hear from you again.
And then he tried to add me on LinkedIn.
What?
He said something
I've had the weirdest people try to add
know.
me on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is weird. He said something like, I'll give you back your deposit and then I presume that we will have no reason to like ever be in contact again. I was like,
until I add you on
a
LinkedIn.
Valentine's card.
Oh, that's nice. Until I add you on LinkedIn. Is that
Until
what he
I
meant?
add you on
Never
LinkedIn in
speak
6
to me
years'
again.
time. Yeah.
Absolute weirdo. People
He was very
are
attractive
weird.
before
Really?
that. Well, I only met him once. I mean, like, listen, I fancy everybody. This was back in the day. I was single and I was desperate. And he called over one day and I was like, you own a house and you're grand. Like, so yeah, I found it very attractive.
Listen, we're getting very distracted from the topic of weather because I'm now like, that reminds me of the landlord that I had a crush on. And never mind. Oh, that's another we could do one about renting and all the horror stories. Anyway.
Everywhere you go, you always take the weather with you. Untrue.
Oh, that's nice. Oh.
Well, no, because like...
I think it's metaphorical. I'm not sure it actually means you brought the actual sun. Like, your personality is so sunny, you brought the sun into the room.
What are the rest of the words? Things ain't cooking in my kitchen. Oh, yeah, maybe it's not actually very... I'm suddenly like, maybe that's not the poetry I once thought it was. I don't know what else is in the song.
I'm sorry if you think that I'm squinting at you, but I still have an extremely sore eye from where the baby stuck a pipe cleaner into my eyeball yesterday.
Ah, those babies, they just love you so fiercely.
It's just more like, what else can happen? Just when I'm like, seriously, I buy pipe cleaners to do some craft, to be a good mother for once. And then immediately regret it. Oh yeah, I buy a hot glue gun, which I say to them, you are not to use this without my permission. 2 seconds later, I turn around, Bo has it plugged into the wall and is waving it around. What am I supposed to do with this, Mom?
I don't know what you were expecting. You're a big regent
I was expecting them to listen to me. He's 7.
Expecting them to listen to me.
I was expecting them to listen to me.
You know what, actually, one of my friends, well, my only friend from Fort Wayne, Meredith, said to me the other day, she was talking about going on vacation this summer or something, and she's like I was going, I don't know if
it's called holidays, Rosemary, going on holidays.
Oh yeah, so well, she said vacation, but I was like, I don't know if it's going to happen because of COVID and vaccines and blah blah. And she was like, oh, you know, you could probably go and rent a cabin not that far away, or like if you wanted to go somewhere cold. And she said something like, you obviously like the cold weather, and I was like, sorry, what makes you think that I like the cold weather? And she goes, oh, I've seen photographs you posted on Instagram. And I was like, what? I said something like, oh, you've obviously been like sucked in by my Insta sham life. And she was like, no, she's like, I just think anybody who's willing to stand in the cold long enough to take a picture clearly likes it. I was like, that's interesting, but also that I don't particularly like it. I would much rather go somewhere hot.
I was more about to say, I said that to Don to say, we need to go to a beach. I just want a beach holiday. The idea of renting a cabin and having to go somewhere with my children in an enclosed space where I have to pick up and clean after them and make food for them is not any kind of a holiday. It is literally every day.
So what do you want? You just want to go to a hotel with a pool, basically?
Yes,
or like,
I want to go to a hotel or to a hotel complex that has, you know, little houses, little chalets on the beach. Here's my dream. Little chalets on the beach where they'll come and make your bed every day and you can just buy food in the little places on the beach or the restaurants or whatever. I don't want to have to make a single meal. I want every single thing delivered and tidied away by other people. I want beds made and tidied by other people. I want the place vacuumed and cleaned by other people every day. That's what I want.
Sorry, speaking of like free time and blissful holidays, do you think you would send the boys to summer camp?
Actually, I talked about this with Nash the other day because he loves that TV show Bunk'd. I don't know if you can, I'm sure you can get that in Ireland. It's Nickelodeon. He loves it and it's all kids in a summer camp, you know, like hormonally doing crafts. Anyway, and he goes, oh, I'd love to go to a summer camp. And I said, would you? I said, I was a counsellor, like one of those. And he's just like, you could tell he's just like, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Whatever,
she's
Mom.
talking about something else. Yeah, like Mom's a loser, right? And I go, yeah, I go, see, she was a counsellor. I was a counsellor. I said, but I hated it. Oh, it looks great to me, Mom. He goes, you just hang out in the pool hall. I said, no, they're like, I said, your whole day is scheduled. You do crafts, you do games, you do sports. Sounds terrible. Child after my own heart. And then he said, how long is it for? And I said, about 6 weeks. And he goes, oh, I don't think I could be away from you guys for that long. Oh,
6 weeks? I thought it was only like 3 weeks.
It was 6 weeks.
And then it was 3 weeks.
There were 2 6-week blocks when I went. There was 6 weeks, and then there was a week or 5 days where we were required to paint and clean and renovate in between the second batch of campers. And then there was only one set of campers who were sent for the entire 12 weeks. They were there the whole time because their parents didn't want them because they were, I have to say, troubled children.
Oh.
They were the ones who tied the other kids to the tree and then denied all knowledge of them in the middle of the forest.
Like in Adam's Family Values.
Oh,
you know,
it was
6
something
weeks
else.
seems like a very long time to send like young kids away, isn't it? You know, they weren't
I have
that
to say
young,
the weather there was beautiful. Now, back to the weather. The weather up there, that was in Massachusetts, was beautiful. And I've always wanted to go and see, I love the fall actually. I'd always wanted to go and see the trees,
fall.
the leaves
Do you mean
changing.
autumn?
In America, it's the fall. The fall, where leaves fall. Yes, autumn. I'd like to see the leaves changing. And you know, you can do like a boat trip up around from New York, I think, where you go and you basically get in a boat and see the leaves change. That was pretty self-explanatory.
It really was. But I like that you tried.
Thanks.
I like that you started.
Yeah,
and
just keep moving, keep going. Keep going.
I would like to rent a cabin. Not a cabin, sorry. I would like to rent like a house by the lake this summer. But then you know what I was thinking? I was saying this to Brandon the other day and then I was like, God, but like you'd be worried about the kids the whole time. Maybe we'd be better off just to go to a hotel where there's a pool. And at least it's like your kid is probably less likely to like disappear in the pool than to disappear by a lake. You know what I mean?
Why would you be any more worried? Like they're 5 and 7. Just give them a pair of floaties and make sure they keep them on. You've been here by the pool all day with these kids. You just have to make sure they have their floaties on.
Yeah, true. And
I mean, are you planning on
setting?
Are you planning on like setting them free? Be back at 8 o'clock. That's not what you do with kids.
No, I mean the dream, but no. God, imagine.
Exactly the dream.
Go and look after yourselves for the next 24 hours. Bye. I'll be by the pool.
You know what though? If you go to a hotel, I was saying to Don, my other criteria was like it has to have a kids club. Now I don't know how I'm going to feel about that with COVID. Like, how soon am I going to be like, hey, go to the kids club? But I also like how my priorities have shifted. 2 years ago, I was like, I would never send my children to these kids clubs. So unsupervised. Who knows who these people are? Now I'm like, bring on kids club. Does it have a kids club for every age? Because otherwise I'm not going.
Yeah, good point. I remember when we used to go on holidays to France, when like mom and dad brought me and Claire basically to a campsite, I really, really wanted to join the kids club. We were always a little bit too old, but also you had to pay extra for them, for the kids club. So like,
I can't believe, is this the same? I actually am like the innocence of you at the same time. This is the same trip where a mother has since like almost had, I don't even know what, like has struggled to come to terms with the alleged, like with the seeming shirking of her duties.
We snuck back out after bedtime and I was smoking
unreliable
Marlboro Reds.
Yeah, that guy had his hand on your underclothing at the same time you wanted to be in the kids club. Like, I'm kind of creeped out by you right now.
It was a difficult time. I was like 13, 14. I didn't know what I wanted. Not a girl, not yet a woman. That was me. Hashtag free Britney.
Oh,
I think we've run out of things to say about the weather, Beatrice.
I'm sure we haven't. I'm sure we have plenty more, but it is time to wrap up because I need to go and do some work and rest this eyeball.
I need to go and eat some toast. I would like to know what people's favourite weather. You know what? Does anybody really like the rain? Like, I liked the rain in Cuba once because it was really, really hot and then all of a sudden it lashed rain for about 2 seconds and then it disappeared and it felt really fresh. Like, I love that moment after, you know, when it feels like it's felt very heavy and close, like it's going to rain for a couple of days and then suddenly there's a big rain shower and then the air feels fresh. I like that. But I don't actually like the rain.
You remind me of like Ernest Hemingway. You're such a writer. The moment after the rain shower. I love when it rains. I love when it rains and you're at the fire. Like, I love when it pours rain and you're inside in your house.
Inside. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, when I'm looking at the rain, I love it. Yeah, well, no, I mean, that was to answer your question. Does anybody really like the rain? I love it, but you're right, not to be in it. Because only recently, when I last went to New York, I got caught in a terrible rainstorm, having forgotten that I was now taking public transport. And I was running in the rain. I had no umbrella. Surprise, surprise, back to full circle. And we were staying in a hotel, Don and I, in Dumbo. So the nearest subway station is probably like a 15-minute walk, right? And so I got out of the subway and it was spilling. And you're like, everybody was under awnings kind of waiting for it to stop. But you're like, it's actually not going to stop and I'll just keep going, right?
Yeah.
And I was wearing... What shoes did I even have on? Because I remember,
probably
when it gets
a pair of suede flat pumps.
I did.
I can imagine
I think I
it
had
now.
flip-flops on is what I was thinking, but I doubt I had flip-flops. Anyway, I had a pair of shoes on that then got really wet and slippy in the rain. That kind of, so you're like, you're kind of cramping your feet up, trying to keep them on your feet. It must have been those, it must have been those pink flats I have that have gotten too wide over the years. I've worn them too much. They need to go in the bin. That's actually that. Anyway, and I was on my way. I was wearing your dress, actually, your kind of sheath dress from Bunk'd, and it was lashing. And eventually I was just like, I'm just going to, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm just going to stop running. Okay. A, I can't run. I'm out of breath. And B, I'm soaked, And when I got home, though, back to the hotel, and I was absolutely now drenched, and I'm sure it was sort of like, I was like, I feel like I'm in a music video, but I probably don't look that good. And nobody was looking at me like, wow, is she a music star? They were just like, wow, she's wet. A music star, anyway, a famous musician even. Anyway, get back to the hotel, wave at the people at the desk like, yeah, hi, get upstairs. And may I tell you, I looked like I was wearing the most misshapen body stocking. It was mortifying. Every lump and bump. Oh, not even stuck to me, like glued to me. And just... Thank you, Rosemary, for looking suitably mortified. It was such a letdown of a moment as well, because in my mind, I was having a Carrie Sex and the City moment.
Honestly, you think you're in The Notebook when like it starts lashing rain and Rachel McAdams runs into Ryan Gosling's arms. Yeah, you're like, this is romantic, and like my hair probably looks like damp. No, never.
And my mascara had run, and my face, I looked like my worst. I always have that conviction that I look like your man in Men in Black, the dude with the tiny pea head, when they go into that pawn shop and they shrink his head. And I'm always convinced like my body's way bigger than my head proportionally. And yeah, I did. I looked like that soaking wet, lumpy pea head. It was
I don't
so
know.
bad.
I'd just like to point out, you and I, Beatrice, if there's one thing that we're not blessed with, it's tiny heads. So I don't know where...
No, it's proportionally. It's like my body is that much bigger than my already large head.
Don't think it is, Beatrice.
Poor me. Well, it did look like that this day. Anyway, and I arrived in, and I was shaking my head like, what's her name? Tina Turner. I was really like, I'm home.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'm back, and I looked fab, and I made it through. Like I bucked the trend. I didn't even hide under an awning, and then I caught a glimpse of myself, and I was like, oh, I better have sharks.
You're like slow motion shaking out your mane.
Exactly, no. But it just looked like I was balding. I looked like what's his name, Elliot from Def Leppard.
Joe Elliott. I used to always try to smile in the rain, because I was like, everybody looks so like, just everybody looks so despondent. I was always trying to smile at people. You just really like, it's not that bad. It's just a bit of rain. And then I caught sight of myself in a shop window one day, and I looked absolutely demented. I was like, who is that? Like. Wet.
How does this even occur to you?
I don't know. I think I was like, oh, everybody looks so unhappy. I should smile.
I should smile.
It didn't help. I just looked like a wet, happy slug.
Well, on that note.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Not Without My Sister. You can follow us on Instagram at Not Without My Sister. Our website is notwithoutmysis.com. Email us, notwithoutmysis@gmail.com, and follow us individually, Rosemary McCabe and Beatrice McCabe, with an A in our respective Macs on Instagram. Oh, and also, while we have you, if you could go on to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review, that would be very, very much appreciated, because that's all the podcast gods care about, and therefore what we care about.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks so much. And we will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Not Without My Sister is produced by Liam Geraghty, sound and original music by Don Kirkland, and our original illustration is by Lindsay Nielsen.
Not Without My Sister is a member of The Warren.
As is our podcast, The Critter Shed.
For more great podcasts, hop along to thewarren.ie.